everybody, Annie from Hoop Sisters. In this video I'm going to show you how to do block B12, B15. It also is block 11 and block 16, and in the border, if you're doing the Fleur de Lis border, it's block 3, B3 and B12. But those are the blocks that are all half square triangles. They may or may not have applique on it. We're going to do this one. It has a little piece of applique on it. But it's just a simple half square triangle with quilting with or without applique. And so I have, I'll show you where it is in here. I have to find it. B12 would be this one right here. Nope, I'm wrong. That one. That would be B12. And this is my little 5-inch one. And I have all my supplies here ready to go. I have my Battilizer in the hoop. I have my wool batting with the edges prepared. I have my backing fabric, and I have my 2 fabrics for my half square triangle. My fabric 5, my fabric 6, and my applique fabric. And you're also going to need your threads B, D, and E, and a matching bobbin for thread B as in boy and E, which is your quilting thread. So let's head to the machine and get started. Alright, our first step for our half square triangle, this particular block is block 12 from the main Fleur de Lis quilt, and I have my Battilizer hooped. I have water soluble thread in the needle and embroidery bobbin thread in the bobbin, and I'm going to sew a placement stitch onto the Battilizer. And step 2 is we have our wool that's been prepared, so we have it pressed on the edges to help keep your embroidery foot from getting caught in it. If your machine has the capability of raising that embroidery foot, please raise it up, and that'll also help eliminate getting things caught. So I'm just going to place this right inside that placement stitch, and it's going to sew a zigzag stitch and then also the placement stitch for the piecing. If you decide not to use the wool, just skip the wool and stitch this out anyway, and it'll give you your placement stitch. Making sure the edge of the wool stays lined up with that placement stitch from step 1. There's a zigzag, and now it'll do a placement stitch for our half square triangle. And I'm just going to put my fingers down ahead of the foot. And you may not have to if your foot goes high enough, but it would be a good thing to do if it doesn't. For step 3, we have placed our fabric 5 right side up over the placement stitch. I have a generous 1/4 inch here past this line that was stitched in the center, because that will be our seam. And I double checked under here as well to make sure that I had an even amount of fabric there, and you'll want to make sure that you have a 1/4 inch at least on the outside of your block. You'll probably have much more than that, but then we still have water soluble thread in the needle, and it's going to sew a tack down stitch just to hold the fabric in place. And this is your fabric 5. At least for block 12, it's your fabric 5. It could change. You'll have to read your instructions. And now I'm going to change my thread to neutral thread, because our next step is a seam. For step 4, I have my fabric 6. I'm going to turn it right side down. I'm going to lay it right on top of my fabric 5. With the raw edges even, and that gives us our seam there. Just kind of peek underneath, make sure you have it lined up right. And then neutral thread in the needle, and we're going to stitch a seam. For step 5, I have water soluble thread in the needle. I'm going to flip my fabric 6 right side up, and I'm going to finger press. I'm going to smooth it out, and we are going to sew a tack down stitch for this corner and also placement stitch for our applique. Just keep the fabric smoothed out ahead of the needle. And this is going to be the tack down stitch for our applique. Step 6, I have thread D in the needle, and I have my fabric 4, which is my applique fabric. And again, this applique is for block 12 and for block 15. Yep, didn't want to misspeak. So here's my applique fabric, and I'm just going to place it right over the top of the placement stitch that just stitched out. I'm going to peek under. I want to make sure I have everything sufficiently covered. It's like measure twice, cut once. It's kind of the same thing. You want to make sure you have that sufficiently covered. So now with my thread D, I'm going to tack this down. I'm using thread D instead of a water soluble because it has a little bit of detail right in this corner that I want to show. Like all our appliques, it's going to stitch over it twice. You'll see that this stitch will go in just a hair deeper, a little curly cue, because we want that to show in our finished block. Now we're going to trim this real close to the stitching, and then we'll continue on. For step 7, I have my applique all trimmed. Give you a little peek, and we are going to sew the satin cover stitch with our thread D. So there is our completed step 7. For step 8, we're going to put our backing fabric on the back of the hoop. And if you're doing the little half square triangle backings, you can just refer to the optional back document as to which light and dark where to put them. So here is my, gotta double check it, make sure I get the right side up correctly. This is the right side. I am going to take it with right side up on the back of my hoop, and I'm going to place it and center it over where these basting stitches is. I'm going to give mine just a quick squirt of Sulky KK 2000 over my trash can, and then I'm going to place it. I'm going to peek under every side to make sure I have it evenly on there. If you have a little thread to snip back here, go ahead and cut off those thread tails or jump stitches. And then just gently, don't push too hard because you don't want things to get out of place or shift in the hoop. Once you have that in place, you're going to go ahead and put it on your machine. And I always like to look underneath, make sure you don't have any Dunlops under there. And with water soluble thread and the needle, I'm going to sew a tack down stitch that holds that backing fabric to the back of our block. So there it is. Show you the back. And there's the backing that's on there. So now I'm going to put my thread E in the needle and also in the bobbin, and that is my quilting thread. So I'll be back when that's all set and we'll start the quilting. Okay, I'm all ready for step 9 with my thread E in the bobbin and also in the needle. At this point, if you've been stitching with your thread cutter on, mine just happened to be off in the video that you saw, but if yours is on, this would be a good time to turn it off. That plus doing a needle down and a needle up to bring your bobbin thread to the top before you begin stitching are things that will help your back of your quilt look a lot neater. So now we're just going to sew some quilting. Good idea to cut whatever jump stitches that go across here like this. Sometimes that wool, because of its extra loft, may push it up enough that the presser foot may get caught in that jump stitch. Try to avoid them or have them stitch out in an order that causes them not to do that. But just to be on the safe side, I do advise you to flip them with your wire machine. The last and final step on block 12 and block 15. Step 10, I have thread B as in boy in the needle and also in the bobbin. And so now we're going to put the hoop back on. This is one of the very few and far between blocks that has the second color of quilting in it. We just thought we'd have fun, get a little creative with it. So now we're going to do our needle down, our needle up to bring our bobbin thread to the top, and then we can begin our quilting. Here's my completed block 12. There's the back of it, and this is what it looks like as it comes out of the hoop. And for this block and for block 15, we're going to trim all 4 sides using the trimmer by George. So we're going to take the metal edge of our trimmer by George and we're going to squeeze it in between the fabric on the front and the Battilizer. We're going to scooch it right up there where the basting stitch is. You're going to check to make sure there's no fabric peeking out. And give a gentle tug. And then with the 60mm rotary cutter, you're going to use the metal edge as your straight edge to cut. And you're going to do that on all 4 sides. And again, just double check, make sure no fabric is showing. And then go ahead and cut it. Final side. No fabric showing. So there we have our almost completely trimmed block 12. This is what it looks like on the back at this point. Now we're going to trim the fabric that is left on the front to 1/4 of an inch because that's going to be our seam allowance. So the other side of the trimmer by George, the ruler side, I'm laying the 1/4 inch mark right on that basting stitch. And I'm going to go ahead and trim away that excess fabric. Just laying the 1/4 inch mark on the outside basting stitch. And our block 12, which is a 1/2 square triangle block, is finished. There's the view on the front. And then the view on the back has only the fabric in the front because that's all we want in our seam allowance. So there you have it, block 12. We hope you're enjoying the Fleur de Lis quilt. Thanks for watching.